Today, we are going to be going over loot from 750 Trials of Sekhemas. Yes, that is correct. You heard me right. 750 trials. This has been one of the longest, hardest projects that I've worked on throughout the entire league, or just in general, but I knew it wouldn't be too much for me, seeing that I do play other games such as RuneScape that require some very long and hard grinds. Our main focus of this grind is to acquire an Incense Relic. So if you guys want to stick around until the end of the video to find out how many Incense Relics Last Flames that I acquired along the way, as well as total profits, definitely let me know. But to start off the video, I will go into the overall investment costs of this grind. So towards the start of the league, I did invest into my own relic setup, and I invested around 10 divines. We currently have a relic on loan at the moment, but I invested around 10 divines. These were around 1 divine apiece into these movement speed, quantity of relics, as well as some movement speed honor resistance relics as well. Now, as it currently stands, these price check for a considerable amount of money. Towards the start of the league, a player named Anima, right here, bought all of these on the entire market and relisted them for about 30 to 50 times the price, from 1 divine to anywhere from 30 to 60 divines. So that was very unfortunate, and so it might be a little bit difficult for some players to replicate or mimic this relic setup. But again, I did spend around 10 divines on this relic setup as it stands towards the start of the league. I did around 100 carries using my own relic setup, which was around 100% quantity of relics, 80% movement speed, and 70% honor resistance. However, I did find out after a while that you can actually buy these tests of times, and these tests of times are on the trade website, and these will take you instantly to the last floor of the trials. Along the way in the trials, I did sell carries. I did pretty much 6-man groups every single run. There were a few runs where we did less than 6 people. I'll get into the numbers a little bit later. But I did buy these tests of times. They sold for anywhere from 10 chaos at the start of the league, all the way up to 2 divines towards the end of the league. We still have about a month left on the league, so we'll see kind of how it pans out eventually. But again, we started buying these tests of times. We bought these for around 650 trial runs in total, and on average, we paid 1.2 divines per test of time baryas. So I'll pull up my calculator here, and unfortunately, I can't really get it on stream, but 1.2 times 650 is 780 divines, and we also spent 10 divines on the relic setup. So that's a total of 790 divines in terms of an investment. And then in terms of my actual build and my character, a lot of these items in terms of an investment cost are items that we upgraded or purchased along the way throughout the trials. They're not items that I actually used when I started running trials. So if you were concerned that maybe you need a really, really strong character to run trials, you definitely don't. I've made it pretty clear that at this point in the league, I won't be upgrading my gear any further. I don't want players to think that you need a mirror in gear to actually go into the trials, carry people, play the Blood Mage Bleed class, and enjoy it. Blood Mage Bleed build is the build that we used for this. I have some videos on my YouTube channel and some resources in my Discord server if you wanted to check it out. But to break down the initial investment cost for the actual build, it was around 8 divines for a Tangle Tongue. I bought 2 Tangle Tongues, both of these actually at the start of the league, for 8 divines apiece. Corrupted them. One got a second socket, that's 3 off perfect, and another got the 15% crit damage bonus implicit. So I decided to just use both of them for 2 different weapon sets to make my life a little bit easier. I do use 2 weapon sets, one that is evasion heavy and one that is a little bit more boss damage heavy. Shout out to Mr. New and Confused for some of those ideas. Also, shout out to Shahan Tai for the original Bleed Mage build. But again, we spent around 8 divines on a Tangle Tongue. I'm only going to count one of these because you only need one of them. I just bought 2 to make my life a little bit easier. We spent around 10 divines on rings. My original rings looked very similar to this one here, albeit they had a little bit less resistance on them. But they only had 2 damage mods and then % fire damage, and they were like 5-10 divines apiece. My gloves I bought for 4 divines. These gloves I did craft on later on. I whittled the fizz damage on them and the max life onto them, which is actually pretty valuable in my opinion. Obviously 3 damage rolls and a higher crit damage bonus would be nice, as well as the increased effect of socketed items would be nice, but some of those gloves go for multiple mirrors, so obviously we just stuck with these gloves. Like I said, we bought these at the start of the league for around 4 divines. So if I pull up my calculator here, we're at 8 divines for a Tangle Tongue, 4 for the gloves. Let's just be nice and say 20 for the rings, but realistically, given the current market of rings, you can buy very effective rings for relatively cheap. We have some examples here. These are like triple damage modifier rings with double res and attributes that we can't even sell for 75 div. So yeah, rings are pretty cheap due to the breachstone changes. You could probably get good enough rings for this build for, in total, 10 to 20 divines. We'll say 20. My amulet, I did buy an amulet. This one I bought from profits at the trials. This one costed 50 divines. I whittled the intelligence on there. Originally, it had damage taken recouped as life, which is not a bad modifier on an evasion-heavy life build, but I wanted to see if I could get crit chance on here. Unfortunately, we rolled int. But yeah, my original amulet was around 4 divines as well, and the only modifiers on it actually were max life, +3 melee skills, and around 20% crit damage bonus. My focus was 1 divine. My crown of the eyes was 1 divine. So we'll add up those 2 numbers as well. So we had the 20 for the rings, I believe. We'll add just 20 for the rings. We'll add, it was, let's say 5 div for the amulet, 1 div for the focus, 1 div for the helmet. When it comes to evasion gear, such as this body armor, it might look pretty crazy. I think I bought this for 8 divines, but my original one that I was using towards the start of the trials was only 1 divine. So yeah, this one, evasion armor in general is pretty cheap, especially with life on it. Relatively cheap until you get into like the 3,000 evasion on the body armor kind of range. So yeah, this was really cheap. Again, if you guys want to know why I run evasion and whatnot, you can check out some of my streams or my trial videos. I do explain a little bit why evasion is better for the trials as a whole. But let's just say, you know, it was around 1 divine for the body armor, around 1 divine for our buckler as well. So we'll add those up. We were at, let's see, 827 plus 827. So that is 836 divines in investment. The ingenuity we actually got from an audience with the king and corrupted ourselves. So I won't include that into the cost. But if you did want to buy these, you could buy like a 2929 for around 1 divine. Or you could even buy a 3030 1 slot for 1 divine as well. So if we just come here and we set this to 2929 and we remove the corruption status on it, as you can see, 1 divine for 2929 ingenuity. There's not much difference between a 2929 and a 3030 or a 3034, right? So just something else to keep in mind. So, and then our boots as well. Our boots were not very, these were like 5, 6 divines. Then I corrupted them for the second socket. Might be harder at this point in the league to find a pair of boots similar to this. I did run a Fall of the Axe through all my trials. These Rite of Passages, Spirit of the Stag and Cat, were recent upgrades that I paid around 150 div for. I think they're only like 100 div right now. But these are actually awesome for the trials if you wanted to invest a bit more money into it. And then the Fall of the Axe, obviously, this is just pretty good in general. It doesn't prevent stuff like worn sandals from affecting you, but it does kind of speed you up whenever you'd normally be slowed down, right? Now, as it currently stands, I've invested a bit more into my gear. As I said, I've upgraded a lot of my gear, so some of it might be more expensive. The jewels in my tree are all jewels that I found in the trials. So this is a jewel I found in the trial. This is also a jewel I found in the trial. These are like 50 to 60 div jewels, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Quick little note with jewels, when it comes to time loss sapphires, we did try to fracture this one. You can fracture these, and you can use dextral or sinistral erasures, which I'll get into later, to either roll off prefixes or suffixes. So ideally on this one, we would have fractured the LE damage and then been able to work on the chaos damage. But when it comes to time loss sapphires, this increased effective notable passive skills and radius, if your tree paths over here, is the most valuable modifier on the jewel. The reason why is that these nodes give flat crit chance, and they also give percent crit chance multiplicative, and they also give pretty high crit damage bonus base values, as well as there are a ton of small passives here. And yeah, you can just get a lot of value out of putting a time loss here, especially if you're a quarterstaff build and you path into both of these nodes. But yeah, these give flat crit chance. So this time lost as a whole, like if I were to pull it out right now just to show you guys the DPS difference, it's around a 10% DPS difference. It's actually significant. It's not going to show up properly because I just lost max life. If I had a well here, I could show you guys. Losing max life because we have this node over here actually massively reduces our damage. But yeah, the total investment cost for this video, as it currently stands, just doing some basic paper math, was around 836 divines. But that being said, we didn't really invest all that money right away. It was money slowly invested over time. The big things were maybe around a 20, let's say like a 30 to 40 divine investment cost just for the gear setup, which is perfectly fine. We do have a +3 rake as well. Quick note with the +3 rake, I did buy this. I did not have this when I started Trials. I bought this from money made from Trials, and at the time I bought it for 40 divines. They're really expensive now. I don't think they're 600. I think a realistic price for these is maybe like 120 to 180, but you're going to have a really hard time finding it for that much. They definitely sell for like 200 div. I think when I started, I tried to look for a +2. I got flamed by some guy when I offered him 40 div instead of like the 60 he was asking for. I found a +3 5 minutes later for 40 div, so I just bought the +3 instead. And yeah, it's long story short, we got pretty lucky with the +3 rake, but we didn't need it at all when we started, which is kind of the main focus here, is that none of this was really needed, right? I was doing the trials when I started and carrying 5 people per run very effectively with significantly less gear, significantly worse jewels, and not all the same jewels and even the same skills that we're using right now. So with that being said, that's the total investment cost of the video. Let's just say 836 divines. So as long as we make 836 divines along the way, we're chilling. Now, as I said, we did sell 5-man carries through the entirety of the league. So there were a few carry runs that I did where we definitely sold carries for a bit less. We may have sold carries, we may have given them out for free. Pretty much anytime someone messaged me and they said, hey, I don't have enough money, could I still come along? I took them. I took all viewers for free. I took friends for free. Yeah, it's just something that I did. As long as I was breaking even for the most part on the test of times, I would give carries away for free. But with that being said, we did make, on average, 3.6 divines per run in terms of carries, all said and done, across 750 runs. So 3.6 across 700 runs, or 750 runs, is 2,700 divines. Right off the bat, you can see just from carries alone, we have made a considerable amount of money. 2,700 divines. So carries, they did really well. I would really recommend players, if they're looking to make money, to maybe sell carries. It's a pretty high demand service. Not a lot of players want to learn the Trial of Sekhemas or run it. They'd rather just pay one divine to get it done for them. And then a lot of players throughout the league create multiple new characters, and when they're creating new characters, they don't necessarily want to do the campaign, for example, struggling the entire time, so they'll just buy a carry. If you guys want to learn more about selling carries and the test of time baryas as a whole, I have some videos on my channel. I won't go too far into it. But we did make, in total, across all of our runs, 2,700 divines from carries as a whole. Carries are one big source of money. Another big source of money for the trials would be jewels. And when it comes to jewels, we made a considerable amount of money. We made around 1,446 divines in jewels. I'll try to put up some of the big jewels I got along the way. We got some pretty big jewels that sold for a few hundred divines. And pretty much the way that jewels worked is that sort of halfway through the league, GGG updated the trials to have significantly more royal caches, and for those royal caches to additionally drop more jewels. So as it currently stands, you can fill up pretty much an entire inventory or two with jewels per run. Now, I did not reforge or recombine jewels at all this league. It just took too much time. There were way too many to go through. Essentially, what I did was identify jewels, and if they identified really nicely, I would list them for sale. And if not, if they rolled with at least one perfectly rolled modifier, so for example, on this jewel here, we got 20% max energy shield, which is a perfect roll. We would fracture the jewel, and then we would annul, chaos spam, and slam until we got a good outcome. I actually made several hundred divines doing this. There were two notable jewels. I think one sold for around 200 divines. Another one sold for around 200 divines. But we found a lot of jewels that also just identified well and sold for 20 to 30 divines as is. We found a lot of jewels that price checked for one divine. Quick note, all of these jewels here are ones that price checked for at least one divine, if not multiple. And as you can see, I have a lot of trouble selling them. Really hard to sell jewels unless they're really good. There are a few modifiers if you guys want me to come out with a jewel video that I could go over that are most effective. But mainly on a jewel, what you're looking for, if it's a time loss jewel, you're looking for effective, notable, passive skills and radius. If it is a, just regular jewel, you're looking for crit modifiers, damage modifiers, sometimes combined with defensive modifiers such as evasion or energy shield. Like if you had max energy shield with double crit modifiers or double ailment modifiers are also very, very valuable. You're chilling. You need at least 3 good modifiers on a jewel for them to really be worth anything. And like I said, you will price check and find a lot of jewels that price check for a lot of money, but they don't necessarily sell. So with jewels, it's hard to say. If you roll a perfect jewel for a certain class, it definitely sells for several hundred divines. The big thing with jewels, I would really say, though, is that, again, over 750 runs, we did make a lot of money. But there were definitely times where we went 100 trials without ever finding a good jewel. I definitely could have made more money from jewels if I actually recombined, time loss emeralds or reforged them at the reforging bench. This is an option. But I definitely would have made a lot more money if I recombined them all, but I would have also been able to complete less trials because I would have been spending more time doing this. And like I said, it's pretty hard to find a good jewel, but with the amount that you get, it's not like unrealistic that you will find one and that it might be worth a lot of money along the way. So just something to keep in mind just a little bit. Jewels as a whole, though, like I said, we made 1446 divines. I will try to put some of the big boys on the screen. Hopefully I did it earlier in the video. I need to go back and edit this. But yeah, the jewels themselves were very profitable. Jewels are definitely one of the top money makers at the trials. But again, it's a lot of work. It gets pretty tiring. My biggest advice to anyone, if you have money to spare, definitely try to fracture the jewels and try to get a good outcome. Here's another example of one that we fractured. We fractured the perfectly rolled Ellie damage on this one. And we annulled, we chaos spammed, and then basically we would slam the jewel out until we got a good result. This is the best result I got. This is pretty much the best result you can get with the fracture like this. If you fracture crit damage bonus, you can get double ailments with double crit modifiers are an example. I recently saw a video, and I don't want to go too far off topic, of Belton selling a few jewels for like 100 to 200 div that had movement speed, attack speed, and they had movement speed, they had attack speed, and they had increased damage to unique and rare monsters. Do not listen to what he said in that video. Do not even remotely think to yourself that those jewels had value. To me, that was just a blatant example of real-world trading. Movement speed doesn't really have value on emeralds or emeralds is what they roll on. We have a few movement speed emeralds that are like perfectly rolled and they just literally don't sell. I'm trying to find the good example here. We have this one here. This is effective, notable, passive skills, damage with spears, increased movement speed, magnitude of poison. I think we tried to fracture this one, but we missed. Ideally, we would have hit the damage with spears and then, gotten rid of the magnitude of poison. But we have a lot of these. We've had a lot of these the entire league. Movement speed is a pretty rare modifier, but it doesn't really sell that well. Neither does hits against unique and rare monsters. People would rather have flat damage through crit modifiers or through ailment modifiers or through just elemental damage modifiers or something along those lines, even spell damage for Crown of Eyes, than they have damage against unique and rare monsters. It's true. I've been selling these the entire league. I've worked with like at least 10,000 jewels throughout the trade site. We barely have any left. I deleted and destroyed literally multiple quad tabs of jewels that I had listed for sale for a divine or less. As you can see here, we also have another jewel. This is accuracy rating movement speed. 1 div. Just doesn't really sell. It is fractured, but again, 2% movement speed. So those don't really sell. Not too sure what his video was about, but yeah. The next main source of money in the trials are relics as a whole. So we'll actually go back to the trial of Sekhemas, and I will show you some of the relics. When you're running a quantity of relics setup, which is what I'd really recommend for those who don't know, quantity of relics on a waystone, such as this one, increases the amount of unique relics that Zarok drops. One of those unique relics is a Desperate Alliance. The Desperate Alliance currently sells for around 4 divines, and the Last Flame Incense relic sells for 600 to 700 divines. So you definitely want quantity of relics on your test of time or on your relic setup. And one thing I will say is that even though a lot of these price check for like 60 divines. You can pick these up along the way to make some potential more money, such as, you know, seal relics and earn relics. But I picked up around 3,000 sealed relics and earn relics the entire league, and I only made around 5 divines. It kind of makes me wonder, like, maybe the price on these is somewhat justified to be worth as much as they are. And the reason why I say that is that they might not necessarily give you value, like infinite value. You could always drop a little bit of movement speed to get more quant, or the other way around. But one thing to note, like I said, is that over the entire course of the league, out of all the earn and seal relics I picked up, these were the best ones we got. We had nulled and slammed every relic that rolled with like 10% movement speed or 7 to 10%. And we tried to get quantity of relics on it. This was the best outcome and the only outcome we got the entire league. I also got one with traps deal reduced damage on it, which I gave to a friend. So yeah, but pretty much for the most part, these were the best relics we got. And over 3,000 relics, we really didn't find any that were notable. And like I said, we really only made around 5 divines. So whether or not it's actually worth it to pick up these, I'm not too sure. I'm sure I picked up a bunch that I could have sold for a few chaos that I just vendored because I didn't want to bother with the time required to sell it. Having to leave a trial to, you know, sell a 1 chaos item is always a feels bad man moment because you have to load back in, and it just kind of slows down in terms of the time that it takes to complete. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. But with that being said, the other big relic that you're looking for drops from Xerox. And like I said, every 100% quantity of relics dropped increases the unique relics that he drops by 1. So yeah, you can have at most 4 unique relics drops with 4 relic drops per run, which is if you have like around 180% quantity of relics and you get enchanted earn, which is a boon in the trials. If you get enchanted earn, it can actually multiply those values by 1.3, 30%, and you can potentially have 4 unique relics drop if you're lucky. If you look here, these are literally Desperate Alliances just from like the last 4 days of trials on stream. These currently go for around 4 divines apiece, and over the entire course of the league, we actually got 216 Desperate Alliances. Now, towards the start of the league, I actually sold most of these, around 50 of them, for 1 divine apiece. Little side note about these, I wouldn't recommend anyone to run these. I did run about 50 of these myself. You sacrifice a lot of quantity of relics on the key, and you also have to complete the entire trial. In my opinion, if you're selling carries, you should just use Test of Times and try to go for the Incense relic, because when it comes to these Desperate Alliances, yeah, you sacrifice quantity of relics. The average against the darkness is worth like 1.5 divines. So on average, you lose money. I lost 100 divines running these, and even the 4% lightning, 4% fire damage ones, you can find on TFT for around 100 divines. With spirit on them for around 150 to 190. So even if I were to drop like a perfect against the darkness jewel, and again, I know there's been some clips out there of individuals selling them for considerable amounts of money, but even if I were to drop a perfect one, there is a 99.99999% chance that I would only break even and that I would have just lost money along the way. I really recommend people to just sell these off. Against the darknesses, in my opinion, Desperate Alliance is not worth it to run. But back to what I was saying, we did sell around 50 of them for 1 divine apiece. We sold around 100 of them for 2.5 divines on average apiece. So that would be an extra 250 divines. And that leaves us with around 66 relics that we sold for anywhere from 3 to 4 divines apiece. And I will basically say that that is around 3.5 div on average. So 3.5 multiplied by, let's see what the actual number is here. 3.5 multiplied by 66 is 231. And our total profit from Desperate Alliances brings us up to 46.77 divines, not factoring in investment costs. And if we look here, excuse my coughing, we have a few notable mentions. I did receive a triple Desperate Alliance drop 3 times. So I got 3 of these in a single run 3 times, which was very rare. These have around a 10 to 15% drop rate. I would actually say it's closer to 12.5% over the course of 750 runs. Like I said, I did get around 216 of them, but we also ran like on average 135% quantity of relics dropped, and we took enchanted earn very, very frequently. So that is why the number is much higher than 12.5%, but I would say on average it is around 12.5% for those to drop. Another notable mention, we did get the Seal Relics, which these, according to my numbers, are around 12.5% drop chance as well. We got a triple Seal Relic drop twice. Now, I do want to mention this because given the current drop rate of Desperate Alliances, as well as the Seal Relics, getting a triple Seal Relic drop rate, or drop, or a triple Desperate Alliance drop is relatively the same math or probability of receiving an Incense Relic. Now, I'm not going to get into the Incense Relics yet because there's one other thing we have to touch on, which are Spectrum caches. If you look here, we do have some Spectrum Sapphires. We've got 4 here. We've got more here. We've got some Emeralds. Unfortunately, the Emeralds and the Sapphires this league really aren't worth anything. The Emeralds are about 1 Divine apiece, and the Sapphires are around 5 Chaos Orbs apiece. So, unfortunately, these are very, very underwhelming to get. The rubies are where the money's at. The rubies earlier in the league were used for an Ember Fusillade build, although I'm not too sure if that's what they're still used for. But with that being said, we did receive 8 rubies, 8 sapphires, and 8 emeralds, making the drop rate of the Grand Spectrum chest around a 1 in 30. We only got 24 chests in 750 runs. We actually went on a dry streak of 131 trials at one point to receive 1 Spectrum cache, which of course was a sapphire when we got it. We also went on a dry streak of around 74, I believe, and we did both of those dry streaks live on stream. Again, if you guys want to check out my stream, I do stream pretty frequently on Twitch or YouTube. My Twitch is twitch.tv/fearlesswild, and then my YouTube stream is just obviously this channel. But as I was saying, we received around 8 of these apiece. I did corrupt many of them because if you get a really good corruption, you might make some money. But as you can see here, nothing happened 99% of the time. If nothing happens, it means that the jewel tried to divine. I've had people ask me about this. Why did nothing happen when I corrupted it? Such as on this Grand Spectrum Emerald. When you divine an object, it can roll like 25% above or below its value. So unless it's like 4% or 5%, it can't actually divine up or down. So if nothing happens, that means that's what happened. If you don't roll an implicit instead. But if you do corrupt these nicely, you'll have a little bit easier or better time selling them. And little fun side note, when I actually started the trials, I received 4 rubies in 4 trials in a row. The first 4 trials I ever ran were all Spectrum caches, and all 4 Spectrum caches were a ruby. At the time, rubies were 4 or 10 divines each, my bad. They were 10 divines each at the time, and like I said, I got 4 of them, so that's 40 divines extra in profit. And we also sold a ruby for 17 divines, and then we sold 2 for 23, and we sold 1 for 25. 8 rubies in total. That brings our total profit up to 4,805 divines. 4,805 divines for all of the jewels, all of the carries that we sold, all of the Spectrum caches we received. I didn't really pick up any rare items, actually, from Zorak. I think I picked up literally 1. And it wasn't this chest piece, it was one of these. It was like this one right here. I picked this up from Zorak. It's probably worthless, but it might be like 5 or 10 div. Once we quality it, maybe if we whittled the thorns damage off or something, got more evasion energy shield. But yeah, we really didn't pick up any rare items along the way. I did get this Fall of the Axe as a drop in the trials, and then just raw divines from Arcanist caches, etc. Because at one point I got bored of opening Royal caches, and working with jewels, we started opening Arcanist caches. I did get around 20 divines, 20 raw divines from those as well, bringing our total profit up from all of the caches, the carries, the relics to 4,825 divines. If we factor in our investment cost of roughly, let's see where we were at, roughly 836 divines, and we subtract that. Sorry guys, I just had a blank doing math. We are at a total profit of 3,989 divines over the course of the league for the Trials of Sekhemas. Now, this leaves 1 item remaining, and only 1 item remaining, which is the Last Flame Incense Relic. A lot of you may be wondering, how many Last Flames did I receive over this grind? Well, I'll put it on the bottom right of the screen here, if I can figure out which button is which on my stream here. I will put it on the bottom right of the stream, or the recording. We live streamed 300 of these trials on Twitch. We live streamed 300 of them on YouTube, and we live streamed roughly, or we didn't live stream roughly 150 of them. The big reason that we didn't live stream them was just I was busy. I didn't have enough time to stream, so we didn't really live stream around 150 of these. But as you guys can see, from 750 trials, we received 0 Incense Relics. Now, with that being said, I did want to give a huge shout out and a huge grats to some members of the Discord and some members of the community. Gale, KL, Zhao. I believe Gale got 2 Incense Relics in a matter of a week. Zhao and KL also got an Incense Relic. I'm really happy and excited for you guys. But I will say I'm a bit disappointed and a bit sore that I never got an Incense Relic. It was my goal and my idea to make this loot video after having received an Incense Relic. But at this point in the league, we only have around a month left. I don't want to come out with a loot video literally a week before the league ends because I want anyone who wants to take a stab at this to try and take a stab at this while they still can. Maybe follow some of my builds, some of my videos. You can get into the trials, you can sell carries, you can make some pretty good money yourself. I've had a lot of people message me and say that they've been making really good money, which is awesome to hear, as long as the market stays relatively the same, right? But yeah, as you guys can see, we have no Incense Relics. We're also relatively broke, even though I've made several thousand divines. Like I said, I did invest a bunch into gear. I invested a bunch into some projects. We've also been working a lot throughout the league on some rings. We've bricked a lot. These are all the rings we bricked this league, and we probably invested like 200 divines each. But yeah, my main goal of this challenge was to get an Incense Relic and to learn how to do the Temporalis run and to acquire a Temporalis. And I had also, earlier in the league, spent 1,500 divines crafting out a wand. I had spent many divines on a focus. And I also have in my stash tabs, as you can see here, we had the Auto Bomber boots, the Auto Bomber gloves. These were both items I picked up randomly. We had started working on breach rings for sort of an Auto Bomber or a Temporalis Spark build. As you can see here, T1 mana regen, percent lightning damage, rarity. Ideally, we would have gotten cast speed and maybe more rarity on this. We also have an amulet. We had multiple amulets, Choir of the Storms, etc. But we had this one here that just really needed cast speed on it, and we would have been chilling. So yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate, I won't lie, that over the course of 750 trials and 3 months of the league that we never got a chase item. Because, like I said, I invested a lot into the build. I had really hoped to get one. I never had enough divines to buy one because I kept investing into the other items I needed, and I was solely relying on dropping an Incense Relic and at worst selling it off for maybe 50, 100 divs less than a Temporalis, and then working with whatever Temporalis I got. With that being said, thanks to Mr. Bruck, we did get the opportunity to wear a Temporalis. We did buy one recently and corrupted it. If you guys want to check out my shorts and see how that turned out. But yeah, we bought one, we corrupted it. It was pretty fun. But with that being said, I'm not going to lie, someone could come to my hideout right now and give me 10 Temporalises or 100 mirrors, and it just wouldn't make up for the fact that I really wanted to earn one myself and have one myself. I'm not the kind of player to really take loans, donations, handouts very frequently. If someone's begging me or really offering, or they come to my hideout and trade me, I'm probably not going to say no. But at the same time, you know, I would really like to earn and work for most of my money myself. The only reason I don't play SSF is just because could you imagine doing any of this on SSF? I mean, could you imagine doing 200 trials and going dry 131 trials for a Spectrum and then going dry 74 trials for another Spectrum, and both of them are Sapphires, and you're literally just trying to farm a Ruby or a Spirit Spectrum, right? There's that to consider. You also have to farm out baryas on SSF, and you can't really sell carries. So yeah, there's a lot. I mean, imagine farming for a Temporalis on SSF and going this dry. You'd probably never play the game again. I played a lot of RuneScape. I wasn't really expecting to get spooned or go on raid. I was expecting to go dry because I've played a lot of RuneScape. I have multiple scythes, multiple shadows, twisted bows, full Torva, and I was spooned on most of those items, so I wasn't expecting to go, like I said, get super lucky on the Temporalis. I was expecting to go dry, but after having done 750 trials, I really don't feel like continuing to proceed forward. So yeah, not too sure what else to include in this video. I'll probably edit some clips or some more information in, but yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for watching again. Over the course of 750 trials, we made around 4,000 divines in profit. The actual math was 3,989 divines. And again, one little shout out or one little mention I wanted to throw out there is that I actually, let me see if I can find it. We actually tried to keep track of all the relics that Zarok dropped along the way for data, but my computer actually crashed before I saved the notepad one night, and we lost like 380 trials worth of data. But the actual drop rates that I managed to work out over the course of like 200 trials to begin with, the Seal Relic has around the exact same drop rate as the Desperate Alliance, and the Peacemaker's Drought has around the same drop rate-ish of the Burden of Leadership, and then the Remembered Tales is about half as likely. So I'm not sure an exact breakdown of all the drop rates. It's probably 12.5% for a Seal Relic or a Desperate Alliance, and then it's around, it's probably around 30% for Peacemaker and Burden, and let's see, it's probably like 15% for Remembered Tales, the Coffer Relic, I believe. But yeah, and then from there forward, the actual Incense Relic would be whatever's remaining on those drop rates, ideally. But yeah, that's the actual breakdown of everything. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely subscribe, comment down below what you guys would like to see next. We'll probably be going into playing some Minecraft and other games for a while because I'm a little bit burnt out from all this. And at this point, I'd almost rather get an Incense Relic at the start of next league. Hopefully none of the drop rates change or anything like that. But I would hope to get one at the start of next league so that I could build out a character relatively early and prosper at the start of next league rather than the end of this league, right? We are going to be doing a giveaway as well on July 1st. If it's past July 1st and you're watching this, you might be a little bit too late. But if you're interested in the giveaway, there are no requirements at all. You can join my Discord. We'll be giving away a lot of these rings, etc. This is where most of my money from the trials that I've earned has been going. Again, we gave away a lot of trials for free, but most of the profit we made along the way outside of that is going back to the community. We'll be giving away all these rings. Some of them are bricked, some of them are good. And yeah, giving away some spears, some body armors, etc. And we'll sort of be going from there. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the love. Peace out and have a wonderful rest of your day.